So I'm going to allow the panelists a few minutes each, not more than 8 minutes, and I've requested them to bank a few minutes so that we are able to have a discussion at the end of their presentations. MEC, your turn. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's always difficult. You're not sure whether you can say minister or not. And I served with you in Parliament, minister, so I guess to me you'll always remain minister. So, but I guess to you, you'll always remain minister. But thank you so much, Mr. Nene, for just laying the foundation. I think for us as a province, while we serve as the gateway to Africa, and we'd like to believe that we still are, we also want to remain the destination of choice for investors, but also the melting pot at which subnational, regional, provincial, and city-to-city collaborations can take place. So it's not just about focusing on what we do in Gauteng, but also focusing on how we position Gauteng to collaborate and bring everybody else together. Importantly for Gauteng is that if the other provinces and the country as a whole works, it also does ease the pressure on a very important aspect that is needed for investment and business security, which is infrastructure. And currently our infrastructure is under strain. And of course, linked to the strain on the infrastructure is the strain on the energy supply. And of course, the survey also does confirm that that is a key decision point when investors are deciding on where to invest. So for us, I think importantly, we want to position ourselves to promote investment in the province, in the continent, and create a platform such as this where we showcase what these collaborative efforts have been able to produce. As a province, we have identified that special economic zones are a key catalyst for unlocking, opening up entry points for investors. Also, it is government's direct intervention in intervening in what would otherwise be known as depressed economies, especially in our province. So we've got the 5 special economic zones. They focus on different areas of the economy: automotive industry, high-tech, low-tech, manufacturing, agro-processing, as well as the supply of energy. And I think for investors, importantly, collaborators who have got a footprint in the province, who have a footprint in the country and in the region, and even in the continent, would want to really look at the SEZs, the special economic zones, as areas for future investment. Of course, our big key attraction, or what we are looking to really attract, is investors in the electricity and energy supply, and of course looking at alternative options. But how do we increase rollout and expand our infrastructure, and just the movement infrastructure, your rail, especially the road infrastructure, so that we are able to move goods and people, as has been identified in some of the previous presentations, as very key and important to this connectedness that we want to create. Thank you so much, Mr. Nene.
Thank you very much, MEC. With that, I would want to get Mr. Brand to follow hot on your wheels. You banked enough time, and I appreciate that. We'll make full use of it when the time comes. Mr. Brand, a simple question to you is, chief executives around the globe are all, we're heading towards the end of the year. They're planning for next year. We want to know what's going to happen. Having strategic planning sessions and all sorts of things. But that needs to take into account where the economy is going and what's the environment like. Now, where do you think the global economy is heading, and what is South Africa's space in that? If you could share with us your vision. Thank you.
Thank you for first of all, for inviting and also for the question. What the fundamental situation is that we are facing global challenges, global crisis, and that's where we are coming from. If you look at the past, and I would like to frame where we are as a company, and maybe also as an automotive sector, we come from a global crisis situation, and it was all about 5 waves of COVID around the globe, 5 times. And now in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th time, you realize that the economy starts dealing better and better with it. But keep in mind, COVID was a devastating situation for a long period for the whole globe. The second element was that we were running short on what we call semiconductors, which is a tiny part actually, with big relevance. Same applies, global sourcing, but high impact on the industry. I had the privilege on Monday to speak to our board, and my introduction was the macroeconomic view of the globe. And if you look at what surrounds us as a country, as a region, and as a continent, it's a lot of hotspots, a lot of them, with the effect that each and every one of those can have a severe impact in the category of the first two mentioned. Were those two predictable? Some experts say yes, some experts say no. I leave it like that. Can I predict, or can we predict, what that risk scenario for the global situation is? Absolutely not. Global challenge. I move over to the second element that drives our business, local challenges. And we touched on that. Thank you for the question. We have infrastructure challenges, both with the OEMs and with our full supplier footprint in the country. So this is a severe thing that we need to at least be commonly aware of. And the other element is that a strike does not help the business. Second element. So to summarize that chapter, we have to do our homework. We as the industry, but also those supporting us. Global crisis, local challenges. Both have the potential to have relevant influence on the country, on the communities that we are working with and living with, and with our business. Saying that as a framing, what does that cause? Open question. Maybe it causes frustration, it causes anger, and maybe it causes fear. Maybe we start blaming them by saying it's rather you than me, blaming. What's the commonality in those aspects? It's negative. What do we need in contrast? We need energy, we need passion, we need know-how, we need decisions, and we need cooperation. This is the positive end. So what's the result? It's leadership. We consider ourselves leaders in the area where we are in. And by saying so, we need to lead in those circumstances. And it's not about contrast, global, local, positive, negative. It's all contrast. So we have to hold that space. And I start with myself. How do I lead myself? Am I positive? Am I now feeling well? How do I influence myself to stay on the positive end of the equation? Second element is, how do I lead my team? Those who are led by me. And you can ask yourself the question, you also have a team around you that you are leading, and they're looking at you. So how do you hold them in the positive space, in that contrast of positive and negative? The third element of leadership, how do we lead our systems? Because there are a lot of people working for and with us that we are not directly influencing. Third element of leadership. And the last element is transformation, because we are all in that transformation. Regardless of what we are doing, we are right in the middle of it. I will elaborate a little bit more on that. What do I mean with transformation? Since as you see, I'm European, and I'm a second time in this country, and I love South Africa from the depth of my heart. Otherwise, I would not have returned. So, the culture of South Africa is to have transformation journey, and we keep going that. On gender, race, religion, generation, all the aspects of the rainbow. This is transformation in the surroundings. It's not all. The automotive transformation is as relevant as that. We are changing from ICE over hybrids to full electric vehicles. It's a big transformation in the industry. A big. Some are impacted more, some are less, but it's a big transformation in the automotive sector. The third element of transformation is sustainability, and I will stay in my 8 minutes, believe me. The third element is sustainability, also in multiple aspects. Environmental, we have a role to play there. Social, we have a responsibility in the area where we are acting. And thirdly, also to have a governance approach to have sustainability decently on our radar. And the fourth but not least is transformation in terms of our leadership, in terms of resilience and in terms of flexibility. Just to give you an idea of what my resilience is, I was a little bit unsure. This is a multinational congress, and I said, oh, there's also an Italian aspect in there. I said, usually very well dressed. And it's the first time I'm here. So my resilience is that I was not sure if we're having wear a tie. And in terms of appreciation, I have one, but I'm not wearing it. With that overall said, the future does not happen to us. It does not happen to us. It's in our hands, and it's our job to shape it. And Kosi, thank you very much for your attention. And I stayed in the 8 minutes.
Powerful, powerful indeed. Thank you very much, Andreas. The same happened to me yesterday. I had to go back and put on my tie because I ended up being the only one who was not wearing a tie. So I had to go and borrow one. And this morning I happened to be able to buy one from the area. Okay. With that, thank you very much. That takes us to our next one. Building on, indeed, what we have had. We've had MEC saying where we are, and we've had Brandt saying what's the future, and his crystal ball takes into account what the environment is like. Now, Francesco, Cesar, where do you see the future?
Thank you very much for organizing such an insightful event, and for us it's really a unique opportunity to gather full understanding of the huge opportunity in Southern Africa. And we are here to share the point of view of a company that does not operate yet in the region, but that aspires to be part of the business community. So allow me to, let's say, introduce ourselves and also to explain our ambition in the region. CISAL was founded in 1945 in Italy by free sport journalists to raise funds to rebuild the football stadiums after the Second World War. And they decided to raise funds basically launching an innovative lottery game on football matches that, as you can imagine, was a huge success in Italy. And basically, CISAL became the first private company to operate a lottery license in Italy. And it was such a success that the Italian government decided to nationalize the business. So after 2 years, basically, CISAL had to start from scratch and to develop a new business. And that's also part of the reason why we've been able to evolve over time and to innovate our industry. So in the last 10 years, we have further accelerated our growth, and we have been basically focusing on strong commitment to sustainability, on digital innovation, and on the international development. So now CISAL manages a lottery license in Italy, in Turkey, in Morocco, and lately also in Tunisia. And since August this year, we're also part of Flutter, that is the largest gaming company in the world. It is listed in the stock exchange in London. It's part of the FTSE 100 and has a market capitalization of more than 20 billion pounds. And also operates in more than 20 regulated markets, has very strong leadership position in the US, in Australia, in UK, in Spain, and obviously also now in Italy. But we are here because we believe that Southern Africa is the most relevant opportunity to further develop our international strategy. And, it's no surprise that South Africa has ranked first in terms of Global Attractiveness Index for 6 years in a row. That means basically the country is the most relevant investment destination in the continent. And with the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, South Africa is also a gate to the largest free trade area in the world, connecting more than 1.3 billion people across 54 countries, and also, representing more than $3 trillion GDP. And we are also very happy that also the European Union has decided to invest more than 150 billion euros by 2030, in order to support and contribute to the development of the region. And when we look at our industry specifically, South Africa has done an outstanding job in establishing the National Lottery back in 2000 to raise funds for good causes. And these 22 years, the National Lottery in South Africa has developed, has reached more than 7 billion in terms of turnover. That means basically generating 1.6, 1.7 billion for good causes. That is very relevant. It also became very popular within the country because more than 80% of the adult population in South Africa has basically been involved with the National Lottery. And obviously our ambition going forward in the future is to support the National Lottery in South Africa. And if we will have this opportunity, we will do our best in order to create more value for all the stakeholders. That means, first of all, more value for the customers, thanks to, let's say, a safer lottery experience, adopting the highest standard in terms of responsible gaming. It means more value for good causes, because we would like to increase the funds allocated to good causes, also leveraging our digital capabilities and our track record of product innovation. But it means also more opportunity, more value in terms of employment in the country, because we believe that National Lottery should be run in the country by people employed in the country to run the operation, but also to develop the technology. And every market has different requirements. So we believe that the best strategy is, to design bespoke solutions in terms of product, in terms of technology, customer experience. And we believe that this strategy works because if you look at our track record, we've been able to increase the turnover of the National Lottery in Morocco by 60%, and in Turkey by more than 2 times what used to be before, let's say, our transition. So we are really focused on, let's say, developing this opportunity going forward. And, should I give any recommendation in terms of policy, and I shouldn't, I would deliberately be, let's say, obvious, and I would simply suggest to keep striving to achieve higher standards in terms of transparency. Transparency of the tender process. And by the way, we are, let's say, we really appreciate the fact that in the last 3 tenders in South Africa, the licenses have been awarded to 3 different operators. And transparency in terms of allocation of the funds to causes, and also transparency in terms of standards of responsible gaming adopted by the licensee to run the business. Because we believe that also in our industry, in the long term, the transparency will make the difference for good.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Francesco. I'm sure we're still going to hear more about this when we take the second round and when we also have a discussion. With that, I want to now come to you, Mr. Hamilton. Simpiwe, as Acting Chief Executive of GDDA. The challenge is on the table, and we know what to do, and I hope you'll do better than me, as you always say.
I'll refer to you as minister. And it's difficult to be on a panel with your boss, but I'll do my best. I like observations quickly. So don't be successful. You may be nationalized. So MEC, we should choose a few businesses to nationalize. I've not won a lottery yet, but I'm going there. Tomorrow I will play. And the 2 of us are the only ones wearing ties because half the time I'm on site looking after the MEC's projects. So I had to wear one today just to be presentable to you. But I think our session is about outlook on the continent. And I think I want to focus on that and come back to what we are doing. We've had a few things, both in the very first panel and the one where the study was presented before this. And I want to just emphasize those aspects. Africa is the most profitable region in the world. And that growth in exports that we refer to coming from any study of 4.5% is an indicator that we must take heed of. Hopefully those exports are not just primary goods, but beneficiated, value-added exports from the continent. Two, it is a growing continent. We spoke about 17 out of 25 cities being in the continent, and we've seen what is possible there. And I think we should work on working on the growth of the continent in every respect. The issue of the population is a key challenge, but it is also an opportunity. We need to make sure that we provide skills for employment for the young people that are being born and getting into the market. Being born is not enough, so they have to be empowered. Being present is not enough. They have to be educated. And I think in the previous session, one of the key things that didn't come out even in the survey here is the role of health relative to education. So I think those two go hand in hand. And from a state point of view, we have to be willing to facilitate all sorts of health interventions that protect and provide resilience for our populations to be able to be productive. The useful element of this, providing the labor that it does, Africa has got the cheapest labor. If you take what we are doing on the continent and you compare to Southeast Asia, we probably are comparable. But half the time, some businesses will choose to locate in Southeast Asia on the basis of the affordability of labor. And in the case of South Africa, we have no choice but to protect employees. And so while the rules, the regulations may be seen as being difficult and being unconducive for some of the business people in the country that are coming through, we have to do it in order to make sure that we provide decent jobs, which are a key requirement from a government imperative point of view. But I think the last aspect is around the fact that this continent is endowed with resources, mineral resources, that though we are speaking about climate change and we are talking about the extent to which, for instance, there's been degradation due to the extraction of those resources, those same resources are required even for the same transition that we are seeking to achieve. So what are we doing? As a province, we have a target of growing trade just generally between ourselves and the continent by at least 3% year on year going forward. That amounts to about 4.3 billion rands in trade. That's where we are going. Two, from an infrastructure point of view, decentralized green technology in the form of everything from microgrids, alternative power sources or energy sources are the things that we are actively rolling out in the province. If you go to some of the recent developments, the Tswana Automotive Special Economic Zone will be green by 2030 because to export into Europe, you will need to be green. And so we are doing those things actively as a province as well. And we would love to partner with Mercedes-Benz and other OEMs going forward to make sure that the minerals that are extracted from this continent are not only beneficiated in this continent, but are also put through into advanced manufacturing processes, and specifically in the area of electric vehicles. And so we have a challenge that the province and the MEC have put on us to establish an electric battery plant, an agnostic OEM free or OEM neutral battery plant that we should be able to service yourselves and many other OEMs that are there. And this partnership would be key for us as a province. We would want to see ourselves as a hub for NEVs going forward. And so it is that as a last element in terms of the aspect of openness that was spoken to, or connectivity, we are engaged with the province, with the Eastern Cape province where you are located, to try and create a Gauteng Eastern Cape rail corridor that will improve the logistics from an automotive point of view, And though this was initiated from an OEM point of view with the blockages and constraints that Ford was having, I see this assisting, for instance, yourselves in bringing your vehicles up from down in the Eastern Cape back to Johannesburg, getting them out of their road so that we can preserve the road infrastructure, but create a more efficient rail infrastructure as well in the process. So the province sees itself working not just for its people and for its geography as a city region, but nationally and continentally, hence these initiatives that we've spoken to. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Thanks very much, Simpiwe. That just shows indeed how important that we take advantage of the interconnectedness of our economies, but also that we operate when we work as a country and a region and the continent at the end. Thank you. We'll hear more about that. You did bank a few minutes. They're there for you. Now we will take Mr. Masoga, who is Chief Executive of the Musina-Makhado Special Economic Zone, man at the heart also of the operations. Give us your views.
Thanks very much, Babu Nene. Just to take it from where the MEC has left it. Indeed, Gauteng is the gateway to Africa by air, and Limpopo is the undisputable gateway to Africa by road. It's important that we contextualize this point because there's no competition. It's just an issue of context. Yeah, we pretty much complementary. But also, alongside the passage between Gauteng and Limpopo and Musina in particular, it's what we call North-South Corridor. And our national policy, the National Spatial Development Framework Policy says that corridor is a strategic national development corridor, which is anchored by what they call import-export node in Musina. And there in Musina, in the confluence of the Limpopo and the Saint Rivers, lies the hidden gem in the form of Musina-Makhado Special Economic Zone, a strategic location where trade happened over 1,000 years AD, when our forebears used to trade in artifacts made in gold with the other parts of the world that used to be called Arabia, India, and China in the kingdom of Mapungwe. We're doing the reincarnation to reimagine the economy of Limpopo through reindustrialization of what our forebears wanted to achieve over those 1,000 years AD. We're doing that through the Musina-Makhado Special Economic Zone, looking at the competitive advantages of our province. Limpopo is the home of the PGM group metals. Limpopo is the breadbasket of this country. Limpopo is the home of the metallurgical coal that is not found anywhere else in this country. Limpopo is the home of most strategic sought-after mineral resources. And that being the case, for many years we have been supplying both the inland, the coastal, and the global markets with primary resources. And we have come to a determination that enough is enough. The time has arrived for us to beneficiate these resources, value add them, so that we can then export to global markets by creating opportunities for our own people. We're doing that through the Musina-Makhado Special Economic Zone, pursuing opportunities within the space of the new economic sector, energy. In the past, energy used to be one of the utilities, services that we want from the municipality. But lately, energy generation is a new sector of the economy. We're doing that because we've got all the advantages of climate, we've got sufficient land, which many other parts of the countries do not have. But also because of these mineral resources, we're developing one of the potentially biggest heavy industrial park in the SADC region. A metallurgical zone that seeks to beneficiate resources in terms of steel production, developing a massive ferrochrome plant, beneficiating vanadium, beneficiating manganese, which are some of the resources that are pleasantly available in our province, but also taking advantage of the abundance of agricultural resources to develop the agro-processing industry so that we can beneficiate those resources that on a daily basis we supply to Tshwane fresh produce and Johannesburg fresh produce, and later in the afternoon we take them back to Limpopo. We want to stop that trajectory and transform the value chain in such a way that they benefit the people of Limpopo, but they create new opportunities for our people. We also want Mercedes-Benz to appreciate that when it produces products in the Eastern Cape and when Gauteng produces other automotive products here, they've got a market share in the SADC region. And we're offering yourselves a one-stop center, then a form of a regional automotive distribution center closer to the Beitbridge border post. This is part and parcel of us harvesting opportunities that seeks to transform our economy. We're working with our neighboring states in Zimbabwe and beyond to look at the possibility of beneficiating some of these resources that on a daily basis they transport to Durban, to Richards Bay, and see if we can put processing plant there in Musina and beneficiate those resources before they can be shipped out of the country. We're currently developing a regional fuel terminal so that we can create opportunities of sourcing that resource from Musina, as opposed to all the time having to rush to Durban by our people who needs that product there. Working on several projects that seeks to make us not just an ideal destination for Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but a practical expression of the realities of regional economic integration and the realization of Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lekhonolo. What we pick up in your closing remarks is that the 35% that came up as the success of the AfCFTA can be addressed only if we pull our resources together in order to fight a common battle of making it work, because it is intended to do just that, to improve the trade amongst the African states. So what more do you think, and perhaps with all the other panelists, if we could hear, what more do you think needs to be done in order to actually activate and to make sure that we address this issue? Because I think it is tragic that we actually are only at 35%, and that came across from most of the respondents. The average is 35%, which is not good enough. AfCFTA has been in place now for the past 2 years. What more do you think needs to be done in order for that to be a success?
Oh, my second bite.
It's your second bite, I'm coming back.
Thanks very much. I think it's high time that we depoliticize the issue of the regional economic integration by taking it out of the boardroom where political engagements takes place and bring it to the ground where real business happens. It is not enough to allow our political principals to stand on the podium and continue to nicely talk about this topic. It's for us as role players to begin to look at how do we practicalize it. But also it's for our political principals to get closer to the reality and appreciate that there are certain factors, including regulatory frameworks, that prohibit and inhibit the free flow of trade and interactions amongst us as nations in the region. And a small regional bloc like SADC, we're a very small group, but there continues to be those inhibitions emanating from regulatory framework. But also the political space must create a conducive environment for us as people to interact as neighboring states, as brothers, as sisters, but also to interlink our economies in such a way that we can then begin to reap opportunities by doing inter-regional trade, inter-Africa trade, as opposed to always when we think of opportunities, we look at the global destination. We look at Europe, we look at China, forgetting that we ourselves, we are a big population that constitutes a very big market where commodities could be moved and we can create wealth amongst each other. Thanks very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Simpiwe, you want to come in that space?
Thank you, sir. I think my colleague, Mr. Masoka here, has captured much of what needs to be done from an AfCFTA point of view, the free trade area. I think for us, starting with creating a platform like this, because if we don't have this, these ideas don't flow. We are already in discussions with Pietra and hopefully his team to not only look at how we regionalize this platform, but also to potentially create an SAAU platform where we can take that free trade discussion and bring it to the continent in the true and meaningful sense of the word. And then if you come to the nuts and bolts of the things, my short experience, my little experience, is that Gauteng can be the glue that holds and facilitates a lot of the work that needs to be done in the continent as a whole. And I say that because all our projects that I have been involved in have depended on collaboration, on facilitation, and we have up to now been able to deliver them just as a province by bringing the partners to the table and delivering on those projects. So Gauteng has a requirement, a mandate, a responsibility to actually play a much more active role in bringing the continent together and creating the enabling mechanisms through which a lot of this work can be done and to roll out that free trade area in a meaningful sense of the word. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Most of those things would require resources. Now, Francesco, when it comes to resource mobilization, what role do you think companies like Sasal can play in terms of mobilizing resources in order to be able to finance some of the country's imperatives?
I think that the role of companies at SEZ is, to invest in the countries where we operate. So basically, to run the business from the country, not only in terms of operation, but also establishing, for instance, technological hubs. That is what we've done in the different markets that we have entered so far, because we believe that it's an opportunity to better understand the market, but also an opportunity to have a better proposition for the market. So we believe that the international development going forward should be always based on having local people running technology, operation, products, because this can make the difference not only for the country but also can improve the business.
Thank you. Andreas, your take? Among other things I would like you to expand on is the issue of transitioning from the current vehicles towards the hybrid, towards the electric. I see opportunities there, but also it did emerge that there is willingness on the side also of the GGDA with regards to working with yourselves in creating the infrastructure for such. Your take?
If I try to answer that question holistically, we have as an OEM and as a manufacturing division, we have to clearly discuss, sometimes negotiate, decide, and then we have to deliver. As simple as that. And I also had that desire in your statements by saying, what do we do? And then we make a decision and we just do that. Just keep in mind we invested 13.5 billion rand into the factory. Check your archives when that type of investment, what does that mean in terms of ranking in the country? So in terms of announce and deliver, I think that's quite a statement of the company towards this country and towards this continent. Second element in that, just we are employing 3,500 people in both locations, one in Eastern Cape and one in Gauteng. If you multiply that with our supplier footprint that we are also embracing, we are talking a lot more employment, a lot more. Also, announce, negotiate, deliver. In terms of product, I fully agree with you. We made the decision on the current C-Class, which is an absolute performance vehicle. We have a performance plant based on a clear sustainability strategy. That's the Mercedes way of operating in this country, with a supplier set that supports us heavily. We are not here without suppliers. Absolutely clear. By saying so, we have been building hybrids already since the first OEM in this country from 2016. We're in the second generation. So we do discuss, announce and deliver. And that includes also our partners. And I would love to finalize that project that we are currently in, also with elements like decisions that we made and commitments that both sides of the table got into. And I would like to complete that, because that is a starting point for the next to come, which is your answer to your question. We do make decisions for future projects as we go along. And the legacy where we're coming from and the staying to commitments from both sides of the table, that's quite relevant to have a good name in the global competition.
Thank you. MEC, all of this requires a conducive platform, a conducive environment for all of this to happen. Looking forward, before I take hands, can I hear your take on that?
I think the biggest contributor that government can provide from all the needs that have been presented on the table is policy certainty. No matter what your policy framework is, no matter what your developmental goals are, no matter what your long-term agenda is as a nation or as a state, if you are certain about how you want it done, investors, businesses, other players, other partners will negotiate with you, will speak to you, will make decisions based on the certainty that you provide. Outside of that provision of certainty, we create an unstable environment for the people that we want to attract in our space, and then it's a no-win situation for all concerned. So I think that's where government needs to prioritize and play at, and provide that certainty so that any OEM, industrial player, high-tech manufacturer, low-tech manufacturer, can come into the space and operate knowing exactly what are the terms, what are the conditions, what is the environment that they're getting themselves into.
Thank you very much. That was very good. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a few hands. I'm quite happy to take 3. If there are any takers, there is one right at the back. Right at the back, thank you. Talking policy certainty, MEC, I know we are still going to have the pleasure of the Minister of Energy to talk about energy certainty. As we speak now, we are on...
Anybody have?
Yeah, we started on that note. Okay, he completed the sentence for me. Okay, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Andrea, thank you for the presentation. You know, I often get very worried with the auto sector. And, policy is quite broad. So let's talk about transformation. I'm still struggling to find it so hard why it is so difficult in the motor industry to transform the dealer network, because there's many black players who want to participate in the dealer network. And we have engaged with the Kopke, Stadler Wolfgang from BMW, but that still doesn't happen. I'm quite very interested to understand what is your plan, because surely there's a social responsible participation that is required in this country, such that you want to see emerging players in that industry. And that is not happening. So I'd really like to understand from your point of view, how is the plan from the Mercedes point of view, and maybe through NAMSA, the industry sector, to say, how are you going to introduce transformation in the value chain? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And you must resonate with me if I'm answering or not. We have a very stable dealer network which we are working with on a daily basis. We have, as probably you know, it's not our own retail. It is we just moved out of that space and just completed that exercise just now. So we are very happy with our dealership and develop them as we go along. So there must be very good reasons why we are stepping away from a commitment that we made to a new space, first of all. The second element is we are more than open to explore options, then we must be approached, and then we must be thoroughly analyze what we are doing there in terms of a business case, in terms of fulfilling certain requirements. But this company has shown that triple BEE is absolutely a space that we can work in. We just moved from level 6 to level 2, which is the second best OEM in this country. So I would really like to understand your need further, but in this forum I would like to, how can I say, make the clear statement that we are very happy with our dealership and the dealer network, that we are working with them on a regular basis, and there are no constraints not to enter the scene unless it is a clear approach that is also a viable solution for us in all aspects.
Okay, thank you very much. That you've got a foot in the door for further negotiations, say at the back there, but not in this forum. Yeah, this forum is intended to create, you know, those networks, those engagements, and after that, what happens after this, we can only claim credit for having for this session having achieved it without us knowing. There seems to be another hand at the corner there where the mic is. Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Hayley Eagle. I'm the director of Jamco Automotive Assemblies, and I've been in the automotive industry for more than 25 years and 9 years in production. And my question is very similar. I'm a good news story from the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency, as well as from Ford Motor Company South Africa. But for the question of transformation, why is it that such excellence is not used to and transposed into transformation, such as root cause analysis for failures, such as preventative measures for failure, such as interim actions for failure to increase the footprint of black suppliers?
That question is not, indeed it is in the automotive space, but that question is not for Andreas. It's for the panel in general.
Can we have it repeated just so that we clear? Sorry, sir. I'm trying to make sure that we understand it.
Okay,
yeah. So my question is, if we see the excellence from the automotive industry, that goes without saying. So why don't we use that same pokey-yokis, as they call it, or root cause analysis to create a sustainable automotive industry, transform companies that can show capability? If it can be done in the automotive industry to run their business, it can be done to support automotive companies to be capable and have 0 ppm and comply with PSW and comply with APQP and comply with Kaizens and all the good things that the automotive industry do. So we're really proud of what you do in our country, and we're very grateful. But as a country, we need to use your excellence and transpose it to transformation.
Yeah, that is indeed it's a policy question at the end of the day, and I would imagine that it's something that actually needs to be taken up with the relevant ministry to see how best that can actually be replicated across the industry. I think that's...
Can I just take a quick step? But I'll take a quick step on actually both of the questions, all right? I think I appreciate the notion of having transformation in the dealership network. But I think the second question speaks to the core of the transformation, because it's one thing to sell cars that you don't produce. It's another to be in the value chain where you add the value and are producing. And automotive is one step away, yes, a little bit less complex, but one step away from aerospace and defense as manufacturing capabilities, which is an area that this country has led in some cases, for quite a while. So for me, yes, the consumer side of it, the sales side of it is important, but I think we should be focusing on what we've always as a province stood for, MEC: transformation, modernization, reindustrialization. And so to be in the value chain in terms of sales is one thing, to be in the value chain in terms of production is another. And I think we should focus on the production side as well, just to start with. Secondly, to enable the transformation, we all know that the industry has created the Automotive Industry Transformation Fund. And I think we need to find bankable projects that enable what the lady has asked in the back there. Because the question that she's asking is, we know this. You design a vehicle, you take it through prototypes, you set a date and you say we will launch it by that date, and you use all sorts of processes and interventions to ensure that you are successful. And my understanding of the question that she's asking is, why don't we have the same approach towards ensuring that transformation eventually happens in a manner that creates sustainable players in the sector? Now, this has been done in other countries. Indigenization in Thailand has resulted in companies like Thai Summit that we have located in the Tshwane Automotive SEZ, which started as Thai companies that were created as empowerment in Thailand. Today, they're a global supplier. So if it could be done in Thailand, what is it that we are not doing to get to that? And I think the answer lies in the policy space, the fund is there, and the OEMs, here is the challenge for yourselves. You see, for your C-Class as it is now, your supply chain is locked. You've qualified the suppliers, you know them, and you are probably likely going to use them in the near future. But for the electric vehicles, the future ones, why do we not have commitment from OEMs that say we are committing that component or those components will be manufactured here? And why is it not, for instance, what we are proposing from a Gauteng point of view, the minerals are here, they should be beneficiated here. The PMGs you are talking about, the cobalt that comes from the Congo is coming down. We beneficiate here, we make those batteries in the continent, and we make them across all OEMs in terms of their requirements. So that transformation is possible, but it requires a very strategic leadership in terms of making sure that we make these decisions and we stick to them.
Thank you very much. That's very useful, Simpiwe. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, at times it is also a crime to stay within your time. So you definitely have to spend all the time and all the time allocated to you. But don't overspend. One thing I won't allow you to do. Yes, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry to be the one to change the subject because we had a very good rolling discussion going on here. However, this dialogue that we're all attending in is a fantastic place, and it's a fantastic discussion going on at a very high level, policy making, policy discussion, regulatory discussion level, which is very useful and beneficial. That will happen and take place and run its course. I think there needs to be, out of these discussions, a separate forum created which is going to deal with direct interventions taken by each respective economic development division from each province or each embassy, each country represented here, to take the respective plans that each country or each economic development zone has and discuss it on a macro, on a lower level, with traders and with companies in the country that are looking for opportunities and have the money. So the big money for infrastructure and for ports and for development and for road and for rail will follow its own course and will come through regulatory discussions that are had at government level. But there is just as much money available on the ground from companies that are looking to invest, to import or to bring in more product or to manufacture more product locally. And that needs to be discussed at a different forum. So in addition to this, there needs to be more regular discussions and interventions taken by each MEC's office and get together with the Italian embassy, for instance, and say in this sector, in your country, who is trading, and we've got partners that want to trade with them, and set up those forums for those discussions to take place. And in doing so, you'll automatically see a lot more business coming and going backwards and forwards. So it's part of the development of the entire continent that we're looking at, but let's start off with our country and see how it goes from there. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's a very important observation you're making. All it says is that this platform, this is a think tank. This is where we actually brainstorm. This is where we bring together, and I must say, Amroseti has done wonderful some wonderful work in bringing together these brains. You know, I was even looking at the dinner last night and saying, you know, the amount of human capital brought together in an environment like this is just amazing. So all that needs to be done is for all of us to recognize what it means for each one of us and make sure that we take full advantage of it in our given times as we go back to our given stations in life, be it in a factory plant, be it in the MEC's sessions in discussing some of these things. Take on board some of the information that has come out of here, and also the relationships that you have built as a result, because this is actually a very rare opportunity of bringing together this wealth of experience and expertise. The message in front of me says, time's up. Press delete to reset. Can you press delete? But ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this lively session. I take it that it has also laid the foundation for the upcoming sessions as we build from early this morning. We are at a point now where we have heard what some of the corporate strategies going forward from these distinguished panelists panel that was here. And we look forward to seeing some of these outcomes being implemented at a particular level. But thanks again, and please join me in thanking this panel with a big round of applause. Thank you.